Good morning, everyone. Aaron here. There's a field in this morning's gospel with good seed and weeds growing side by side. And the hardest question is, which one is growing in us? Then we meet a young woman in India who offered every pain she carried to the one she loved. For those of you looking for our traditional Catholic prayers, the link is in the description, and I'll drop it on screen at the end of this video. In our Tuesday morning gospel from Matthew chapter 13, we hear, Jesus dismissed the crowds and went into the house. His disciples approached him and said, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds in the field." So he does. He tells them, "He who sows good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed, the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sows them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the harvesters are angels. Just as weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all who cause others to sin and all evildoers. They will throw them into the fiery furnace, where there will be wailing and grinding of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Whoever has ears ought to hear." The disciples wanted this one explained. They had heard the parable and something in it stayed with them, and they waited until the crowds were gone and they were alone with him in the house to ask. And he gives it to them plainly. Good seed and weeds growing in the same field, all the way to the harvest. And the first thing we probably do with a passage like this is start looking around, sorting the field into who belongs where. That person is a weed, we think, in that situation, in that group over there. It is almost automatic. Jesus lays out a field with two kinds of things growing in it, and we immediately want to know who is who. But maybe the harder and truer question this morning is not about the field out there. It is about the small field of our own hearts. Because the honest truth is that on any given day, we are not sure which one we are. Perhaps that's where this meets us. Not as a chart of who is saved and who is not, but as an invitation to look at the one field we are actually responsible for. And there is such mercy in the fact that the harvest comes at the end. God does not pull anything up early, and he does not come through this month and yank out everything in us that still looks unfinished. He lets it grow, and he gives us time. That waiting is not him ignoring the mess. It is him being patient with us, giving us room to change, room to let the good seed win. Think of someone you have watched become a different person over the years. The slow turning, the prayers that seem to go nowhere for a long time, and then, quietly, change is visible. This is the patience of this gospel. The very time we are standing inside, right now. This is the month the church gives to the precious blood, and the reason the field is allowed to keep growing, the reason the harvest waits, is mercy poured out for us. We are given these days because Jesus paid for them. So maybe the invitation this morning is simply to use the day we have been given, to let a little more of the good seed come up, and to be honest about the weeds without despairing over them, because the one who sows the good seed is still sowing, and he is not ready for the harvest yet. Now let's turn to today's memorial. Saint Alphonsa of the Immaculate Conception was a young girl in Kerala, India, who once pushed her own foot into a heap of burning embers so that no one would want to marry her. She was 13. Her marriage had been arranged, and she could not see any other way out. She prayed all night, and then an idea came to her. If her body were disfigured, the suitors would lose interest. She said later, "Oh, how I suffered. I offered all for my great intention." That tells you almost everything about who she was. From the time she was very small, she believed she belonged to Jesus and to no one else. She said she knew it by the age of 7, that she was no longer her own, that she was totally given to her divine spouse. And she spent her whole short life defending that. She was born on the 19th of August in 1910, the last of 5 children. Her mother died when she was only 3 months old, where she was passed from her grandparents' home, where she was happy, to the home of an aunt who was strict and often harsh. The aunt wanted to arrange a good marriage for her. Alphonsa wanted only the convent. The tension between the two things ran through her childhood, and the burned foot was where it broke it open. Suffering followed her the way a shadow follows a person. As a child, she had an infected skin condition that lasted more than a year, and she was badly burned again when she fell into a pit of burning chaff, which left her partially disabled for good. She joined the convent at Baharanaganam and took the name Alphonsa, wanting to become a nun quickly, though her poor health kept holding her back. When she finally began her novitiate, she began bleeding from her nose and eyes and had open wounds on her legs, and everyone around her feared the worst. Then something happened that the people say was a miracle. During a novena, through the intercession of Blessed Curaçao Elias Shavara, she was cured, suddenly and completely. She went back to her novitiate and wrote down what she wanted her life to be. Never reject anyone. Only speak sweet words. Never complain, no matter the suffering. And when humiliated, run to the Sacred Heart of Jesus. She made her final vows at the feast of St. Clare in 1936. She taught the children in the school, and they loved her for her gentleness and her cheerful way, though her health kept pulling her out of the classroom. Then the illnesses returned, one after another. There was pneumonia and a terrible fright one night when a thief stumbled into her room, which left her unable to read or write for about a year. And finally, in her last year, a tumor spread through her body and turned her days into constant agony. Through all of it, she stayed quiet, suffering in silence and keeping a charitable attitude toward the sisters around her. She once told the novices that grain has to be ground into flour, and grapes have to be crushed into wine, and that suffering crushes us in the same way, into something better. She said, "I consider a day in which I have not suffered as a day lost to me." On the 28th of July in 1946, she died with a smile on her lips. Almost at once, people began reporting cures through her prayers, many of them children, many of them with clubbed feet, which she herself lived with. India's first saint. Saint Alphonsa, you offered every pain to the one you loved. Teach us to carry what we cannot escape, and pray for the sick and the suffering who come to you. Amen. 2 fields this morning, one in the parable, and the one in each of our own hearts. Both still growing because God is patient enough to wait for the harvest. That patience is not Him looking away from what is unfinished in us. It is the time bought for us by the precious blood. Room for the good seed to sprout. And then Alphonsa, who offered all the suffering that filled her days, and even began calling a day without suffering a day lost. Click the link in the center of the screen now for today's Catholic morning prayers, and I'll see you there. Share your intentions in the comments below. If you're on your phone, please tap the hype button below to help push this video into YouTube's algorithm. God bless.